How we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Great to have you. If you are watching, appreciate it. Got guest Mike Lathrop join us tonight. He's from the Player 54 podcast. How's it going tonight, Michael?
I am somewhat well. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm coherent, so I'm ready to do this.
I like it. True soldier, gonna push on through. I see.
Yeah, it's all good. No, I appreciate coming back on. I think this is the third time, so it's awesome. Or maybe the first time under the new banner.
I think so, but man, you know you're always welcome anytime. If you ever want to pop on, you just give me a shout. I haven't had as many episodes recently, so I don't know. It's good to have you on, dude. I appreciate you, and you're a very valuable, I would say, friend at this point. I know that I could call you and ask you a question, and you'd be honest with me. So that goes a long ways, man. So thanks for coming.
Likewise. You're welcome. Likewise.
So you said you're a little under the weather. How's that weather down there in Florida? Because here in Mississippi, man, it's been cold.
I love this weather. That's why I moved down here from New York. This weather, that 60s in the morning, 70s, cracking 80s, that's the kind of weather I want. It's perfect for me.
Sounds
awesome. I get that nice, cool weather into just almost summer. And yes, here in a little bit, it won't be as pleasant. It'll get into the more heat, humidity, and even stormy season. So that's
yep.
You got to take the good with the bad wherever you're at, right?
True story. I think it's similar to Texas right now here in Mississippi, where the evenings and night times are pretty chilly. Daytimes, 50s, 60s, but you can hear my voice is kind of cutting out over here as well, just because of that weather change. So guys at home, if you do hear it cut out on either one of our ends, that's just because we got a little bit of the crud going on.
Yeah, it's not technical difficulties. It's just human difficulties.
Ain't that right, man? Well, Michael, man, what have you been up to since the last time we talked? Anything going on your way and with the podcast? I know, and I will ask you in a minute. I'm curious about, kind of your fandom and what you're gonna rep this season. But let's just talk about you first. I mean, anything new?
For those who don't know, I'm now a foster dad. I don't remember if I was at the time that I came on here or not. So life has significantly shifted for my wife and I. But time management, like anything else, you just gotta find the balance. And for the show's kind of, I'd say, in a weird place, because time leads to not only being able to do the show, but also leads into the way that I communicated with a bunch of people, trying to line people up for guest appearances and whatnot. So we kind of had a lot shorter episodes, 10-minute, 12-minute episodes as of late, just getting right to the point without guests. But it is what it is, and we'll have to see what happens this year, because as of a conversation last week, life kind of happens everywhere. So Mark Hallback will not return this season.
Oh no!
To do his weekly analysis. He may come in on occasion, but we were waiting to the very end. There's been some significant shifts in his life and with his family and whatnot too. That's just what happens. Life happens, and we all have to roll with it. But he's welcome to come back if it works out for him time-wise, kind of like me. So I'm in, like I say, this awkward stage of trying to figure out some things. Doesn't mean the show's going away. It just means the show's got to navigate through and figure some things out. So to be determined.
Understood. I respect that, man. And you keep grinding away. You've been doing this longer than I have. And coming in, you're one of the shows that I actually looked at. It's like, hey, I kind of want to do something like that. So whatever you do, decide to pick and do exclusively, I know it'll be done correctly. There's nothing wrong with waiting for that commitment,
Yeah, just sometimes it picks you. So we'll have to see.
Understand that as well. Can I ask you, as far as repping Orlando, have you picked up any more teams you're going to be following closely this year?
That's interesting, because a little while ago I put out there, give me your best sales pitch. Convince me, right? Because I going into this, I was like, what if the teams are on hiatus, right? And that's kind of a tough thing, just to go follow a team for a year, start buying merch, and then come back to the team that you followed. So I've gotten a lot of interesting pitches, no bribes. So I was kind of a little disappointed there. It's all good. But no, I as of this moment, I think I'm going to remain neutral. And I think that's going to give me a perspective that I probably haven't had in a while. Not that I've ever come in as a true fanboy, but I think at this point, I think it could give me a perspective. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have some interest in some of the players that have moved on and they're playing elsewhere within the league, but I think I'm going to remain neutral. So, but thank you for everyone that tried to convince me. There were, some definitely good points made, and some, tugging on the heartstrings, with your players are here, so, keep it up. Maybe you can convince me. Kickoff hasn't happened yet, but I doubt it.
I think the line in the sand has been drawn by most individuals right now, at least the ones that keep up with the leagues and the merger. But I feel very similar to you. And, I really kind of repped the Roughnecks last year. But this year I've kind of pulled back. I'm really going to try to pursue following players and moments and highlights and games, So I definitely get that. My team wasn't pulled, of course, but I mean, kind of, depending on how you look at it,
Yeah, it's definitely different.
After you sit through a few of the spring footballs leagues and you lose your teams, it gets kind of harder and harder to make that grass for a new one. And that's, I think, true in relationships as well.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
Rick 8-Bit said he's glad to have you on tonight. So appreciate that, Rick. He also said he loves your jersey collection.
Yeah, I want to add some more. I got a couple others I haven't gotten up there, but there's only so much space, so somehow you got to figure it out. And I know now that it's the UFL, it's not just XFL teams, so there's that's where I was hoping some of the bribes are going to come in to keep me from having to make those purchases, but it looks like I'm going to have to make a purchase, and I'll have to choose where that money goes, and it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Could be worse for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tell you, I had something similar to what you got going, and that's why I started putting stuff in the boxes that's behind me, because it's ease of storage, and well as it just gets it out the way where you can bam. I have 4 jerseys in this room. I've got more that I don't have hung up, but I was the same situation there for a little while where I was like, well, I don't know what to do with all this. Just leave it in the box, and it wasn't storage for a while, but anyway. It's cool to see everything, dude. You got some different generations going behind you, so it's really neat.
Yeah, technically, as of right now, all 3 of the XFL generations have made it up there.
That's awesome.
Now we got to find to keep the XFL generation coming into the new one, because this is a new iteration, if you will, especially with conferences. And if the jerseys change, I guess I'll have to pick one, and that might put me in a box, right? If I have to purchase one of the teams. People might put me in a box, right? And be like, well, he's no longer neutral. He technically chose that. So yeah, I'll have to be mindful of what that is.
I'll be curious. We're gonna wait for the season to start to do that. I'm sure I would as well.
Newsflash, Mike Lathrop now has. No, it's not that big of a deal, folks.
Mike G said, hey, what's up, Mike G? Hope you're doing good. Jersey the King, what's up, Jersey? Hey guys, how are we today? Doing well. Just going through a few of the comments while we can. San Antonio, this is from Jared Hansen. You know Jared, right? You guys did some work together on
the he's been on a show that we worked on, right? We did Neon Green Mafia until obviously we knew Orlando wasn't coming back, so we put it on hiatus, which it looks like it's gonna be a longer hiatus and maybe a permanent hiatus. But we worked together. But before that, Jared and I actually carpooled to an Orlando game. So he rode with my wife and I out to the very first game in Orlando in 2023. So yeah, I've been interacting with him for a while.
That's awesome, man. The personal relationships really make it worth it at the end of the day. When you make those friends, I mean, it makes it worth it for sure.
Definitely.
And then we got Overtime Underdog. Hey, fellas, super stoked to be back. He went on a cruise, so he's been out of the country. So he came back and hit the ground running.
There you go. Enjoy.
Yep. Overtime Underdog. It's Brady Ray. He's been doing a lot of stuff, trying to spread the word about the IFL, and it's going pretty good so far. All right, and last, or we got two more. Brahma Bulletin, howdy. What's up, Brahma Bulletin? How are you tonight? Then we got Clyde Emerson. Clyde said, hey, guys. What's up, Clyde? Hope you're doing well. All right. So since we kind of made our introductions and talked a little bit, let's get right into it. I mean, we know the season starts in 11 days. How are you feeling about that right now?
It seems like, still seems like a ways away.
Agreed.
Kind of coming from the week right after the Super Bowl. It feels like we kind of been in this, I call it no man's land here for a little bit, kind of just waiting and seeing. But it's training camp, football activities happening, roster decisions are being made daily. Essentially, we see all the updates. So, I mean, it's real, but it's not real enough. It just seems like we should have football now, but I get it. Things evolve, things change. So, I just hope I'm locked in when it's, the 30th, because I wanted to be there for the opening game, and that didn't happen with everything going on in my life. But it's just funny how priorities shift a little bit. Not that I'm not a fan, not that I don't plan on tuning in, but it's just it's a little different when you had season tickets before and you planned out your trips when you're going to leave, and whether it's to do pre-gaming stuff, tailgating or whatever. And so that's a significant shift this year. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for it to get back in the swing of things. I think it would help everything that's kind of gone on since the conclusion of the XFL season in 2023, the USFL season in 2023, the rumor, the finally acknowledgement with the intent to merge and stuff. So I think it's real with camp, but I think it'll be real when we see Birmingham and Arlington head to head on the field. Like, I don't know if everyone has really wrapped their heads around that. I think that's when this becomes real. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, agreed. 100%. I mean, looking back, I have memories popping up on different social medias and my pictures from where I'm going to events or watching it or doing the podcast. And it's crazy to think about. It's been a year already. And it, I don't know, it's coming soon. And
right.
I know from judging on social media and different personalities that do podcasts and content, I mean, we got a lot of stuff churning out right now in terms of the league. So it makes me excited as well. And I think a little bit is it felt like we were doing a hurry up and wait scenario. And so, we hurried up and we waited and we waited and we waited and we waited. And then finally we got the news. So it'll be good. And really, I think, the biggest thing for me personally is let's see how the tickets do, how they sell, and let's see how these TV numbers look. So we can talk about some long-term success, in the future, whether it be next year, the year after, or whatever.
Oh, no doubt.
So I'll be in Houston, as long as the credentials get approved, on Sunday for their home opener. Didn't want to go all the way to Arlington, unfortunately.
Well, I wanted to do Arlington, and then when I saw the Houston game, I was like, man, here's a chance to potentially hit the double swing before I'd have to fly back if I could coordinate the flights just right. So I could see double dipping on it, but again, it didn't work out for me. Happy wife, happy life, and when you got several kids now, and gotta make sure she is in a good place too with those kids. So it's a little bit different.
For sure. Real life comes first in all this stuff.
Right.
And unless you're making major big bucks off this, which nobody is, I assure you, but real life has to come first. This is enjoyment. This is hobby. This isn't our jobs. This is what we do to enjoy ourselves. So you can't do those things without taking care of business at home first. So you got to do what you got to do, Michael.
Right.
I will hopefully, I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting you this season, though. Hopefully we can coordinate that at some point. It would be awesome.
I would love for that. I love meeting everybody in the space. I mean, one way or another, I know some people look at it as everyone's competition, right? Because we all have a show and everyone's trying to get listeners or viewers or follows on these social media. The thing is, I don't know if a lot of listeners and viewers realize that we're really not those people. And I'm not saying that there are not some people in this space that are not that way, but we're really not those people. No. And there's a lot of people that would rather connect and be part of the community and really want to see each other succeed. And, and if it doesn't work out for somebody, unfortunate, but I don't think most people are wishing ill fate on anybody.
Exactly. My thought about it is you do your thing and I do mine and we're all good. We don't have to coexist in terms of a relationship unless we want to. And then I'm not going to hate on anything you're doing. Do your thing. Just don't get in my energy. Stay away.
Right.
That's it. Yeah, I'm the same, man. And either way, this season looks good. I'm excited. I am ready for the final rosters to drop, really. And
that's when it gets real.
More, for sure.
I mean, that's when it gets real. I mean, I know football, when it kicks off and the games count and they matter, that's as real as it gets. But when you have the final roster, it's funny because I have people ask me all the time, well, who do you think's the top team? Well, one, you got to see how the rosters play out. Mm-hmm. Two, injuries are a real thing, as we saw in DC when you lose Abram Smith. Wow. And I'm not to get ahead, but I mean, like,
you're good.
Those are significant things, right? I mean,
definitely.
So it's kind of tough to look at that. So to see what the rosters are going to look like, and that kind of starts to give you a little bit better idea of what may or may not be coming down, right? Because you can see quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Maybe see where in some situations there might be a battle, or it might be like, okay, they're going to run two quarterbacks, kind of like how DC did last year. And so, to some extent, Tom was the guy. But when you kind of get into that and you start looking at it, you'll start to get a better idea as this roster comes to, because what things may look like today may not be reality once the rosters are actually set. So we'll have to see.
No doubt. And I mean, we'll talk about Smith more today. That was one of the guys that I wanted to kind of talk about. Well, here in just a second, we'll get on the training camp and talk about the notable ads, drops, injuries, whatever. And right. We're not going to spend a lot of time. I picked 3 to 5 different names, and I'm going to go. And, it depends on our time. We'll see what we have. But definitely, I mean, he's huge. Losing him's a big deal. And it's not only a big deal for that team, it's a big deal for the league. So, I mean, when I saw that, I was disappointed. But there's other men that can take that spot. We just don't know their name yet. And that's the beauty of this is we should be able to have, we should have the next man up ready to roll. So let's get off that. We'll get back on that subject in just a minute. Let's talk about the championship game in STL on June 16th. It was officially announced. I got the post right here. I'll pull it up somewhere. This was speculation for months prior, so I wasn't surprised at all. I'm glad they finally announced it. And hopefully St. Louis makes it to this so that those fans can flood the stadium out. Regardless, I think you'll have a lot of St. Louis fans in there, but it'll be all the better if their team makes it, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, if St. Louis were to make it, I think you could have a sold-out dome. I mean, not only does every fan turn out that's a Battlehawks fan, but you have all the traveling people. And I think this is where the interesting piece come in, because we saw how many people traveled for the 2023 championship in San Antonio. Fans of every team made it.
Yep.
I mean, Jared Hansen, speaking of Jared Hansen, an Orlando Guardians fan, he was there. And I literally, didn't matter how good your team were or not, people made the trip for that. So if St. Louis is in it, yeah, I think it could be a sold out in, because now you're bringing 2 leagues together. And I'm not saying we're not going to lose some fans because some teams are on the bench or are not currently active, however you want to put it. But, St. Louis, a dome, weather doesn't scare people away. It's, in this is, essentially the center of the country. Should be easy for people to travel in from wherever. I've never been to St. Louis, and I know I was planning on making a trip not too long ago there and didn't work out, but I mean, I'd love to go. And I'd love to get my wife there if possible. Whether it's media, whether I'm credentialed or not, that doesn't matter. I just, one way or another, I'd love to be there and take it in and support the league, because that's ultimately what it takes. The big games is what it's going to be. But St. Louis, I think it deserves it. It's one of those cities that's really kind of been dealt a bad hand. And I don't want to act like just because the Rams left, that's it. But I mean, it's not the Rams left. And then in 2020, COVID hit and they lost their football team again. Right. And then you can't help but wonder when the merger came out and teams we know that they're the poster child of spring football franchises, but you can't help but wonder if that's something in the back of their head, some of these fans like, here we go again. Is something going to go wrong? So, this is good for the city. I think they deserve this, not just because of the way they turned out for the Battlehawks. I think it is a football market. I think, those in the National Football League kind of did a disservice, and good for them. And they kind of deserve it.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with that 100%. And last year, if that game would have taken place in St. Louis, we would have saw a increase in participation amongst fans. And I will say that and not speculate. That's my firm opinion. When you go to these games, man, you'll see it's a culture and it's a feel that I personally haven't felt in a large group in a game atmosphere yet. Now, I've definitely felt that with different fans, different super fans, different tailgating events. But in terms of just a citywide culture of football, you can see it when you walk. I mean, you're walking to the game. There is so much stuff going on. And this was in 2020. I didn't go last year. But I know in 2020, I went 2 times, I'm sorry. And every time, I mean, it was like a parade. It was like we were going to watch the World Series. Nice. Very, very much. So agreed, man. This will be good. And I'm glad that they have the respect for this market to give them what they deserve.
Well, what I hope that the city does, forget about the dome, forget about the fan base. What I hope the city does is they kind of step up in a way to play up host. Definitely. And I'm not trying to say that San Antonio did really well with that. I mean, but the river walk and whatnot. And I walked from where my hotel was from, downtown, which wasn't super far. But I mean, that makes it, I've heard that St. Louis isn't the best with crime and stuff. So, I just hope the city can somehow find a way to create like a good area to host all those people that come in and not just the people that are local. So if they're able to do that, they could pull off probably a very, very amazing event. And that's kind of what the league needs. They need good publicity, not any bad publicity. And I know they say any publicity is good publicity, but I think the league could use the better publicity, every chance it gets.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, man, I never felt unsafe in these atmospheres. Now, it is in some rougher part of town back there in St. Louis, but like I said, it's just everyone is out in droves for the Battlehawks, whether they're tailgating, whether they're going to the game, whether it's the bars and the restaurants. It was huge. And I don't know if that changed last year because I didn't attend. But I don't see it changing because they were probably very stoked that their team made it back. But yeah, it's definitely not San Antonio in terms of tourism. It's definitely doesn't give you the same features, but I don't know. Both are great in my opinion. And then that was my first time in San Antonio last year. And I'll tell you that, like you said, walking around, seeing things, there was so much to do in 2 days. I didn't get it all done, but yeah.
Right.
So this will be good though, man. I'm glad you agree as well. And I figured you would. I don't know anyone that's upset about this personally.
I guess I could look at the other side of the argument. And I get where the people that want the Hall of Fame. And that's one of the things that's kind of a nice setting to have the Hall of Fame there, make a day of it. And one of those things that it's a fairly smaller stadium because you could fill it out really well. But weather's a key. You really don't have a team, and I'm not saying the USFL didn't do well with it, but they had their playoffs leading into it there, so that kind of definitely helped it.
Agreed. Yeah, imagine going to Birmingham June 16th for a championship game. That would be a little rough just in terms of weather. Sitting outside is hard to do in the South in June. It's a little rough.
Well, it is. And if you think about it, not to get into it, but once, you submerge yourself into, like, say, Florida culture, you realize when storm season comes, right? And that's what they call it. Not just rain season, but storm season. God forbid you could have a hurricane. Now, I understand things happen. We've seen it with the National Football League where, New Orleans had to move some games and it's impacted. But, you think you put it in some place where a league that's essentially, whether it's another launch whatever it is needs everything to go right. They can't have anything go wrong. So probably the domes are probably the safest way to go for at least the first couple of years. And luckily for, the league, they have 2 teams with domes.
That's good. Utilize.
Right.
I would as well. Let's roll into the comments. Let's see what we got over here. Mark Nelson said, "My bet is the championship game in St. Louis will sell out no matter which teams are there." I like it.
That's possible. It definitely is.
So yeah, and we say sell out. I mean, we're talking what, 70,000, give or take.
I want to say it's in the 60s.
60s.
I could be wrong. I mean, not that
I got a comment from Jersey. Jersey said STL is the best place out of all the stadiums we have contracts with. They could fill the dome with almost 70,000 if they open up all the seating.
Well, let's just take a look here.
I'll tell you, when I was there, and it was
67,000 according to this little quick. Well, that's the Pedia.
yeah.
I'll take that for it. But standing room, maybe you can get to 70.
I'll tell you, man, I think I was there 31,000 or something. I can't remember. It was in the 30s for both games I attended, if I remember correctly. And it was tight. It was really tight. It was a good time, and it was an electric atmosphere. And I'm a huge Saints fan, so it reminds me a lot of the Superdome. Because it's loud, they're proud, and I don't know. I personally haven't seen anything like it. From what I hear and reviews from different people in media, is that DC is very similar, just in terms of the fans being on top of you, rowdy, loud, energy. So it'll be cool to see it either way, and hopefully these Battlehawks can fight their way to that.
It looks pretty good. The roster looks all right now.
Doesn't look too bad, no doubt.
No.
See if we had any comments again before we move on. Yeah, so getting a few more coming in. Rick 8-Bit said, the Dome at America Center, which adjoins the Cervantes Convention Center, is a convention/stadium facility with approximately 67,000 seat capacity and is home of the St. Louis Rams NFL football team, or was, for sure.
So maybe they could take advantage of that convention and build some events leading up to it. I'm not, it's the United Football League. I'm not expecting National Football League money and resources being dumped into it, but could you imagine what the championship could look like if they were able to utilize everything there and people just kind of come in, didn't have to necessarily walk from, and I'm not saying people are not going to hit up bars and restaurants anyway, but if you can kind of set up and have a fan zone type of thing and maybe do some media, the media have access to people, but have it so fans can see the media session going on leading up in the days too. I mean, I think there's ways of doing it to make it seem like a bigger event than it actually is. We know it's a championship, which is a pretty big deal, but it'd be nice to kind of draw in a little bit more. And we know St. Louis media will be all over that in a way that probably other markets probably would not. And I'm not trying to put down media elsewhere, but because it's football, and I think you can just see what ESPN Radio and all the guys, how they eat up Coach Beck and all those guys all the time. And I'm not saying these other coaches and staffs don't make it on radio stations elsewhere, but I think that city would show up and put their best foot forward for media for a championship game that's being held there, whether or not St. Louis Battlehawks are there.
Understood. All right, let's move on. I think we made our points from that, but I'm in agreement with you as well. I was happy with that, and I'm glad we didn't wait for the season to start to announce it. That's what I was worried about, right. Honestly. Give people something to talk about, and so at least we got the official word.
Let them start booking their hotels and flights, right? I mean, just start looking forward. So and then all we have to worry about is tickets later on.
Said Rick 8-Bit said cards are giving away Battlehawk hats. Great inner promo. Yeah, I mean
that's pretty cool.
I saw that as well. And those are really good looking hats too, man, for some giveaways. It doesn't look like anything cheap.
Yeah, gotta love it when other professional franchises are supporting you one way or another, or at least getting the word out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think they'll have city soccer going, or they have it right now, right? I mean, I'm not sure what the league's called, but they do have a soccer league going as well.
Yeah, Major League Soccer.
That's what it is. So yeah, that's what I don't know. We'll see. I know last year, judging from the media, it seemed to be one of the busiest spots in Battlehawks territory for sure in terms of media. All right. So, man, let's talk about UFL Training Camp. It's almost over. We're almost to the end. Seems like it didn't start too long ago, honestly, which it really didn't. We're waiting for the 50 final men to be placed on a roster, and that's really what I'm waiting on the edge of my seat for. But we've had some big things go on, such as injuries, signings, waivings. And like I said, I tried to pick a few to talk about, but I don't want to go crazy in depth about this and spend 4 hours. So, and you're welcome to share any you have as well. So, but I'll just go ahead and start if that's cool.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. Let me get my share pages up and ready. So the first thing I want to talk about is how Memphis waived Cole Kelly. And they came to terms with Josh Love. This, to me, just means that they know who their guys are over in Memphis. We got Case Cookus and Josh Love. Josh Love was a former Mauler, Panther. Interesting enough, he had the highest completion percentage in a regular season game, which was the opening game of the Panther season last year in 2023. He had 171 attempts with 106 completions for 1,214 yards with 10 TDs and 4 interceptions. Now, Josh Love, I mean, if you look up his highlights and such and see him play, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback at all. He's got skills that he can utilize in many ways. But, I mean, is he better than Case Cookus? So it's interesting to me as well. You know, Cole Kelly, he doesn't have much professional experience, but he has some big accolades under his name, some big awards, some major playing time. So I found it pretty interesting that, you know, they chose Josh Love instead. And I guess that really just goes to game experience and knowing what you're getting in that bye.
Well, I think what it's going to come down to is sometimes you see the quarterback that seems to be the guy. And sometimes you see guys that clearly look like the number 2 or number 3. And then you see that somebody seems to be either the quarterback's coach's guy or the offensive coordinator's guy. They click. They're on the same wavelength. So I'm not trying to imply anything here.
No.
With Memphis. But what I'm trying to say is, like, yes, they figured out Kelly wasn't their guy, and now they figured out, you know, Love is one of their guys, right? So this kind of coming into this, is he the guy enough to, you know, unseat somebody? You know, we'll have to see that. I mean, I think it's Cookus's job to lose, but again, I'm not in the team meetings. I'm not on the field. You know, we only get to see what they want to post on social media and whatnot. So.
Yeah, right now we're strictly, and we'll discuss that too after this. We're strictly, most of what we can view on our end is from social media posts, player videos, things amongst that nature. So I don't, like you said when we started this thing. I mean, the landscape of this can be completely different than what we even expect because we're not there. Right. I heard from some people at the Arlington Renegades open practice, and they said that went really good. But in terms of actual, you know, sports coverage, I don't know how it went. I don't know who was catching the most balls, who was throwing quarterback first. I'm assuming Perez, but anyway.
Right.
Yeah. My thing is I'm not surprised as much as the ads and the drops. I've been more surprised with the injuries and the retirements. And I know when I talked to Mark Nelson and Greg Parks last, I was curious, like, who else is going to retire? Who else before this is over? And then we hit Bo. Bo retired. So let's talk about him now. That's cool.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my guys waived that I think is, you know, I think that's a pretty big deal.
No doubt.
I mean, I'm not trying to take shots at a, you know, back-to-back champion here, but I think at some point, you know, obviously McGowan's not coming back, but Bo, I think that's a pretty big deal because it's not only on the field, but it also impacts fans, like fans tied to teams. Not just that your team is in the city or, it's one of your surrounding cities you're willing to drive in an hour for. But sometimes you're drawn to the player that's played for your college team for years. And I think that's a huge loss for them. I think on the field, and I think it's also impacting. And if you look at their stadium, they're only selling tickets on one side of the stadium. They're not even selling tickets in the end zones. For a team that's been in market for 2 years and was the hub the first year and stuff, I think that's something like Bo's retirement is a big thing. And I don't know how many people just are not happy maybe with the merger itself, but something is off there. But Bo, I think it's a huge loss for the Stallions.
Yeah, I agree with you. And after I did some more research, because I'm not USFL strong, I'll admit it. I'm learning just like everyone else that wasn't from that landscape. He appeared in 6 games with 5 starts in 2023. I'm sorry, in 2022. He had 84 carries for 352 yards and 1 touchdown. The following year in 2023, he got injured in the opener for Birmingham. So I don't know. I don't think he played again in that season, if from my research at least. And guys at home, if you see anything different, please comment. No problem.
Well, right. I mean, people may not play, but to say that, it's not. I'm not saying you're saying it, but anyone that says, well, then you obviously didn't follow. But it's a big loss for. I think he was going to be their guy. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Sure. USFL guys definitely let me know, but I mean that's a huge loss, and I think there's a reason why he wasn't protected initially, and why they made an effort to bring him back. And injuries are real, so
exactly.
It's probably not that he didn't want to come back. He's retiring from football for a reason. It was probably a bigger deal than it was, but I still think it's a huge loss for him.
Yeah, no doubt. It's the Abram Smith of USFL, in my opinion. It was kind of that lead running back that you really expected to see do some things. So I can remember being in college back in like 2014, 15 and seeing him play for Alabama is what's crazy. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it's been a while.
Time flies.
Yeah, that's crazy. They have plenty of backups there in Birmingham. You got CJ Marble, Ricky Person Jr., and Larry Roundtree III. So they have plenty of backups. I'm not familiar with any of those 3 names. I'd have to do some more research, but that seems like they got a roster ready to fill that void.
I still think they're going to be a playoff team, or so it's not like I'm taking shots. I do think that they're still going to be one of the better teams.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you for sure. And the culture there is winning. The culture there is being the best. The culture, I mean, that's what they're riding on. And I really, really appreciate how they are continuing that right now through this merger. Their team didn't really change compared to some others. The culture of that team, the way they act and put themselves on social media, it's very consistent to what they did previous. All right, let's roll on to Abram Smith. So this one kind of hurt my heart. I'm not going to lie. It was a little disappointing to know. And because this one will be out for the season. And, he was injured. He was added to the injured reserve list. According to UFL board, does it say what he got injured in? It just says he suffered an injury during training camp. Michael, are you familiar with what injury? I apologize. It says, although there is an indication he may have suffered a torn ACL. So
that's what Mike Mitchell was reporting initially, that it appeared to be an ACL injury. So if that's the case, he's definitely out for the season. I have not seen confirmation on it, like anything official, but so that's not good news.
This would be a good thing for them to include in their waiver or their transactional reports. Let us know what has happened. We don't have to know the details, but something has to. We have to know if we're out for the season, we're out for a few games, something. There has to be some indication of this.
Well, I believe the injured reserve list, if you're put on it, you're out for a minimum 5 games.
Yep.
So if that's the case, he's out for half the season at minimum, if it's not an ACL. But Mike Mitchell is as legitimate as it gets, people.
Oh,
so
no doubt.
I mean, Mike talks to a lot of people, is connected. So if he's under the impression it's an ACL, then more than likely that's what it is.
Gotcha. See, I don't even know who dropped this info first. It's starting to get really hard to keep up with that, in my opinion, to know who's dropping what, because we'll get one thing and then there's 5 articles written immediately about it. So appreciate you, Michael Mitchell. You're the best. He knows that's my guy. You know, I've had him on the show a lot. We've had a lot of conversations about many different things on and off air. So yeah, he knows he's got the love for me and respect.
No doubt. Yeah.
So with this injury, everybody's heart was broken, and DC defenders especially, their hearts were broken. How do you feel about it in terms of XFL representation? Because I felt like this was a big name for us in the XFL conference.
I think this injury it's going to have such an impact that this could be the difference between them not making the playoffs. And I know I'm going to hear about it from Lemon Throwing Nation over there in, the snake, beer snake people. But he is a big part of what they did, right? You don't have a quarterback that sits back and just tears people apart. So I think if they can get the running game, but I mean, that's 800 and some yards they lost. One game you ran for 200 and some. I mean, like when you got somebody just tearing people apart like that, it's pretty crazy. So, I mean, like that's a huge loss. And you can see when he wasn't having that as big of a game in the championship, how much that impacted them. Now, I'm not saying some things that you couldn't have gone a little bit different here and there, and it's not necessarily all Abram Smith's fault. But let's keep it real. He was a big part of what they did offensively, and I think now teams are more stacked. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't necessarily stack your running back core because you thought you had him and now you don't, I think that's going to be a huge loss.
Yeah, for sure. And looking from the UFL rosters page online, I'll pull it up real quick. They have Zakondre White as running back, Darius Haggins, Cameron Harris, and Puka Williams. So
White was just recently signed, if I remember correctly, like within the past day or two.
Yep, very, very. It was right after the injury almost.
Right.
But they, from my views right now, and it's kind of choppy looking up like who's on each team. You have to really pay attention. But they have the most running backs on roster from my views. So we're going to see some drops this way. It's curious to see who they stick with in the end.
Oh, no doubt. And they might sacrifice another position or two to carry an extra running back while they figure this out, because this is obviously nothing you could plan for. So you're gonna have to give White some legitimate time to get a look at him. And I mean, maybe 11 days, 2 weeks, maybe it's enough. But I don't know. They might have to skip someplace else just to carry, just to protect themselves, make sure they're good.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be curious to know how their offense is, what they plan on doing. I mean, are we going to look at this dual quarterback system like last year, or are we going to have something different?
Well, that's also different, right? They don't have all the same people back.
Yep, exactly.
So
we shall see, my friend. But regardless, that's a pretty sad loss for DC. And regardless of who you're a fan of, I'm sure you feel that pain in this league because it's a big name.
It is. It's huge.
All right, let's roll on. So my next name is one that I'm sure you could guess off the top of your head without me even giving you a hint. Ja'Cour Pearson. Ja'Cour Pearson got hurt. I'm not sure of the injury. Let me pull up an article from UFL Board. So, let's see. I don't know. It doesn't say what exactly he did. I know he injured his leg.
Yeah, but he also sounds upbeat about a return. Even if he's out for 5 games, right, they're going to have to take care of business without him for the first couple games, or at least get a couple of W's in there. And then if he returns, he's ready to rock and roll again. As we saw with the Renegades last year, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So I mean, yeah, it's going to hurt for the first 5 games at least, but it sounds like he'll be back. So, hopefully for his sake, and obviously for Coach Beck and company, I don't know if I'd be totally concerned.
No. And when you look at their wide receiver room, they're stacked. And I don't know who they'll keep, but as of right now, they have Marcel Aitman, Jamarcus Bradley, Hakeem Butler, Darion Chaffin, Blake Jackson, Jerome Cap, Stephen Mitchell, Darius Shepard, and Jeff Thomas. So they're stacked right now in terms of receivers. And I don't know. This is another one that's pretty saddening to me because, Jakor was out there with something to prove. He didn't make an NFL team. He needed to have another good season, and hopefully he gets back in action pretty quickly. In terms of Battlehawks, I mean, this guy's a crucial player on any team. I don't care where he's at. So you can definitely expect wherever or whenever he comes back that it's an automatic boost for these Battlehawks.
He played lights out.
Lights out
last year.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people are anticipating the same thing. And, so it is a loss, but it's not the end of the world because it looks like he's coming back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Agreed. Yeah. Let's see. I had some stats here. He had 60 receptions last season in regular season, and he had 670 yards total. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. And the thing about Jakor is he's not very tall. So the fact that he can ball out like this is amazing and just speaks to his athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
So I had one more thing I wanted to note, and it was Michael Wright was waived by St. Louis, and he was the cornerback. Super well sought quarterback, I thought. It seemed like, he was going to be a big name with the UFL and whatever team he ended up in. So I was surprised that he was waived. Former Oregon Duck. He was picked in the dispersal draft by STL. He signed on January 31st officially, and their only backup for that position right now is Channing Stribling.
Yeah, which I thought was a surprising cut initially by the Stallions, but I also thought that was a huge addition for them. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's that he's the guy, but I think that was a huge addition on their behalf. So I think they're all right. Even look at defensively, I think the Battlehawks have stacked up. Getting Pitta and whatnot. I think they've done what they needed to do. So, I think Stribling is a good enough replacement.
I'll tell you, if you watch Mikel's highlights, he's actually a returner too, and he's a good one at that. So
which they don't really need with Shepard.
True, that is true.
Yeah, I mean, when you just look at how that team is set up, I understand what you're saying, the addition, but when it's not like they lost their return man because of it, because now that so I mean that was talking about the receiver room. There you go. There's another guy in the receiver. So
you got the skill guy there to do the skills he's meant to do. So understood. Right. So that was my list I've gathered. Michael, if you have any you want to share, I'd love to hear them.
Well, I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting, and I know that kicker is not one of those positions that people talk about, right? So, I mean, when I look at Matt Amendola being waived by the Brahmas, I mean, it's kind of tough to waive on a guy that's been in the National Football League. And, I saw some exchanges on social media even with Destroying there, who they ultimately kept, and he was talking about whatever numbers and percentages that came out of there. This guy didn't know what he was talking about. So maybe Amendola just had a horrible camp, and it could be possible. Maybe Destroying did something, but I think that right there is a surprise keep versus waive.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are going to get into, well, maybe they want the buzz because, Destroying is a, social media superstar. So I don't think it has anything to do with that, because I think Wade Phillips and company is about football. I don't think he's about putting, so I was a little shocked by that. And not only that, Luis Aguilar, that was let go by, the Roughnecks. I mean, wasn't he like Mr. Consistent for and I know you're not a USFL guy, but looking back. So I know that's not sexy anymore, but I also have to say Morgan Ellison that was let go by the Renegades, a running back. And I just thought that was surprising because I thought it does come to a point how many running backs you keep, but I thought he did extremely well.
Agreed.
But that can also make you question his health because if you recall, he kind of picked up a ding there in Seattle last year, and that's when they ended up picking up Lindsey. They came in late to finish off the season for them. So maybe there's something lingering there, but I thought Morgan Ellison was a surprising cut also by the Renegades. So not to give you a long list, but
I looked at that name as well. I promise. Earlier I was reading about it also. I'll be ready for the final rosters to drop, like I said, and it's just a few days away now. And then that's when you can talk about who's better than who, power polls, rankings, whatever. Right now, it's day to day, man.
It's funny because somebody had reached out to me, I believe it was early March, and they're like, hey, we want to offer you an opportunity to be in on our power poll or, power rankings. And they're like, so, middle of the month. And I'm like, well, when the middle of the month? Are you doing like dead center of the month? Because, I would wait as late as possible to get it in because I think rosters can significantly change. And not only that, we'll learn more things coming out of camp as time goes. I'm not saying we're going to know it all. We're not going to have the depth charts that we're going to want at that point. But it's funny. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's kind of difficult to do this. And not to be rude, but all it takes is another season-ending injury or two to the right players, and that changes everything for a team. So, yeah, it's 11 days is still a lot of time for something to happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we see they're active. They're active. The most, like I said, so this will wrap up the notable roster adds and drops. But the most that I have seen so far from this training camp is on social media, and that'll be our next topic. It's a lot of different stuff on different teams' pages, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. You're seeing a lot of different content in terms of actually, it's real content. We can't judge much off of it. We can't evaluate much, but we can still get a taste of what's going on. Now, to me, it's kind of what I'm liking so far is that players are even being involved in some of this, and we're getting some good stuff from players. Destroying as such. I mean, we knew he was going to do some things with YouTube, and I'll show that off real quick. So this is his most recent vid. It's muted, so we'll play it. But yeah, I mean, this is just, him talking about becoming a starting kicker for the Brahmas. This is on YouTube specifically. Good video. If you haven't seen it at home, check it out. I mean, it's getting you a taste of the action. And then I wanted to share Madre Harper. He's doing a good series right now, and it's a lot more personal.
I did see that. I thought that was pretty interesting.
He's not famous, so I mean, he's not necessarily. He doesn't have to sit on a certain pedestal when he does this. I mean, he's doing this stuff like a real person. So I'm enjoying it quite thoroughly so far. It just like the random video.
I'm gonna be doing a series of the whole UFL.
Can you hear this, Michael?
Week by week.
Yeah, I can.
Be with me doing long form content, man, on my YouTube. So I think this would be a good change of pace, and I'm just really excited and anxious to get out there. So.
Got the dog. Yeah, so that's Madre. Check him out, guys, at home if you haven't. That's also another good series to keep up with. But my thing is there's so much going on social media right now. I feel like so far this has been the best part of the merger, whether it's other content creators, players, the leagues, whoever. We're getting so much stuff to look at that it's awesome, man. I appreciate it compared to last year where I felt like it was kind of silent until the season started for us.
Well, is this kind of the difference of two ownership groups coming together and trying to say you can't silence somebody so much, right? Versus the other one that kind of like, okay, wants to control X, Y, and Z. So it's give and take. And I think it definitely is something that it's probably a struggle because when the XFL signed their exclusive broadcast and digital rights to the Walt Disney companies, well, that obviously had to take a significant shift when Fox came in because so therefore it lost exclusive on all that. So I wonder how much that opened up, and it's letting players, because we're even seeing more players doing some appearances that weren't necessarily, approved. They're kind of have a little bit more. So, I mean, I haven't pushed for it because I haven't had the time, but I mean, that's kind of different where a lot of that had to be really coordinated through the league in the XFL. And I don't believe that was the case on the USFL. So it appears there is kind of a little bit of, loosening up that grip, so to speak, that control. And it's kind of a good thing because, we as in whether it's media, this medium that we're in, or it's fans, we want more and more access. We want to know. We want to get to know the people that we're going to cheer for and all that stuff. So I think that's important because in some cases, some of these guys are not stars. Some of these people are greatly unknown, and you got to kind of talk up that story. And, maybe they should have been doing a Player 54 or some of these other shows coming out of camp, but it's kind of tough to do that if you're going to still cut people. And chicken salad, as we have seen coming out of it. And I get it. It's the one thing that everyone, but like, that's a pretty big guy to talk about and have a segment, and then all of a sudden that's who you're cutting. You know what I'm saying? So that's also kind of tough to have those. But I think it's good to have this because this is the stuff that's going to go out to their friends, their family. It's going to get retweeted. It's going to get reposted. Whatever the terms are using now is all the social media kind of shifts, from changing names and new ones come up and all that stuff. So I think it's important because that's how you're going to get people. That's how the world, it works today. It's not necessarily all in front of your television. This is let them be their own stars. Exactly. And that's what we're seeing in the college game, right? With NIL and stuff, and letting them, own their own identities and their own images. So let these players continue to do it. They're going to only help your brand.
100%. I agree with you 100% on that. And I've reached out for a couple interviews and they did not happen. They didn't get approved. So I've kind of dialed it back on my end, honestly, because much like last year, I tried the same thing. And last year was a little bit more understandable. Didn't have much of a name behind me. But it's good to see that different players are able to go on shows and coaches are getting on this radio station, and it's all great stuff. And it brings me back to the 2020 XFL feels. It brings me back to that community involvement where every city has that community behind them. And that's something that they have to be successful to get this.
No doubt. I mean, like, we can talk about, the strategy of being in markets versus, the USFL that wasn't. Right. Yep. Well, guess what? You're in markets and you got to really have that buy-in. Exactly. You're paying for a stadium one way or another. Right. And now your product's going to be on TV and you're not selling 2-for-1 tickets, and it's not taking a shot. The landscape is now what it is. And the other ones got to get caught up, and you got to do what you got to do. And I'm glad the coaches are getting out there. I'm glad that Russ Brandon and, Moose are getting out there doing what they got to do in the media. But that should be the norm all the time. Should be the off season, whatever it takes, because it can't just be the first month before the season kicks off and hope and pray that it's going to sell a bunch of tickets, because it takes a little bit of time for somebody to hear it multiple times and really for it to resonate and word of mouth to start to kind of spread. And that is the way that this ends up successful. You can buy billboards, you can put advertisements on TV. Yes, it helps, but that costs a lot of money. That doesn't necessarily always get the return, but word of mouth, right? Good, bad, or ugly, always beats any other type of marketing because it's personal.
For sure.
It's very real. And when somebody is talking good about something or talking bad, you take stock in that. So whether it's good or bad.
No doubt. 100% agree on that. And I noted it on my last show as well on the social media presence. It was more of from a media personality or content contributor vibe. But at this point, I mean, I'm super pleased with the league and the players as well. Let's keep this going through the season. And this is how you're going to get a lot of people involved. A lot of people. I agree with you 100% though. Let's see if I have any questions, but that about wraps up my talking points. I just want to close the training camp section with the reminder that 50-man rosters go out according to UFL board on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024. So I'm guessing we'll see them either that day or Monday, but we should know something very soon in terms of who's where and what they're doing.
I mean, we could still see some changes because that's just going to be the nature of the beast afterwards. But yeah, no, it gives us a very good idea.
For sure.
Coaches got to start setting depth charts, and I hope that we see a little bit better information coming out with all that too, depth charts and injury reports leading up to the games. And I'm not trying to take shots at anybody, but I think there comes a point that as these fantasy platforms take off, as the sports betting, I think they need to do a little bit better, and transparency is going to be key. I know it sucks in some capacities where teams feel like they're tipping, their hat, so to speak, or their game plans, but I think it's what is needed in this day and age of sports.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it's difficult from any standpoint, even a fan, not knowing what's going on until last minute. If you're really betting on games, unless you just don't know what you're doing, you're looking at this stuff. You're really paying attention, and it goes in fantasy as well. At both ends of the spectrum, it's like you got to be plugged in to a degree. Now, of course, you don't know what the game plan is, but you know if Abram Smith's going to play or not.
Yeah, if the leading sacker or the leading rusher, edge rusher is going to be in the game or not, is going to rush the quarterback and hurry or sack. That all makes or breaks game plans. It kind of changes things significantly. If a quarterback's got a ton of time to throw the ball,
yeah,
quarterback's probably going to have a better day than normal. It's like, so people, yeah, it all makes a difference, no doubt.
Brahma Bulletin says he thought the roster cuts were finalized tomorrow. I found an article from UFL Board, and that's what I used, and I'll try to stick it in the show notes as well. I think, yeah, I've got it right here. Hold on, let me pull it up. But I want to make sure while we're on air that I have this date correct. Yeah, so here, let me share with the people at home. So this article is from Greg Parks. He wrote it on March 10th, or released it on March 10th. But on this sentence right here, they will carry no more than 58 players until the final cuts, which take place in about 2 weeks on Saturday, March 23rd. Now, this may have changed as well, so I don't know. But anytime I do anything, I look for written documentation. I don't try to do anything without making sure that something's verifiable. So hopefully that's accurate. If not, I guess we'll get those final rosters a little early, and you won't hear me complain about that either.
All right.
But I'll share the links to this in the notes as well, guys, so you can check that out if you want. See, I'll roll into a couple comments and then see what questions we have, Michael, and then I'll let you go. I appreciate you staying on, man. I know you're sick.
Oh, it's life. You just got to do what you got to do.
XFLMikeG said, Defenders head coach Reggie Barlow confident Cameron Harris can step into the void left by Abram Smith's injury. We believe Cam Harris has the ability, Barlow said. We believe that he could be the guy that can do it. And that's from UFL Board. I guess that's from one of the media conferences that happened throughout the day.
But isn't that what a coach is supposed to say?
True.
I know. That's just, so yeah, it could be true. Could very well. Maybe it's the next man up is ready to rock and roll, and he's ready to make his mark and do good things for himself. And I hope that's the case for anybody, whether it's a team that you support or not. You can't fault a player or a team and want people to be successful. Later on, once these teams are established, you can learn to hate teams. But in a league like this, you want players to keep taking that opportunity and make it to the next. So I hope that's the case. But I also think that's a little bit of coach speak.
Yeah. He's got some talent on his roster. Puka Williams is an athlete as well. And we saw, he's definitely not the best in the world, but dude's got skill as well. He just wasn't utilized correctly in certain positions, in my point of view, at least. Oh, Champ, he said new teams next year. I am not talking about this, Champ. I'm sorry, Clyde. I do not want to talk about expansions until we make it through this year successfully. Let's do it. And then I'll talk about it all day long, I promise. But right now, I'm going to kind of skip out of that subject. Michael, you got any comments about this?
Oh, man. It's not just Greg Williams' comments. It's stuff that I'm hearing in the background that it sounds like 10, 12 teams is definitely a lock for 2025. So, guys, I'm not the guy. I've never claimed to be the insider.
You're the guy, dude.
Listen, I've never claimed to be any of that, but yeah, it definitely sounds like regulatory might have had something to do with this. I think from what I'm hearing, the XFL wanted 8. The regulatory wanted nothing to do with 8 teams and said, okay, we'll give you 8 for the time being, but this is what it's going to take. I won't get into the markets that I've heard. Listen, I'm not going to fuel that speculation any more than I already have here, okay? Like, because you're not going to win that, right? Some people are going to take shots one way or another, and the people that want to talk about expansion or reviving teams, whatever you want to call it, they're not going to give up on it. It's been like this before the season's ever kicked off in 2023 for the XFL. I already look at so I get it, but there seems to be a little bit more to this than just Greg Williams talking about an XFL plan. It sounds like there might be more to it.
Agreed. And guys at home, if you're interested and don't know what we're talking about, it's an interview that he had with, I believe, was it ESPN? I can't remember.
No, he was on some podcast. I think was his son on there too. Or maybe it's his son's podcast or something like that. There's a podcast. I don't have it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I can include it in the notes though. I'll dig it up. Let me write it down.
I mean, you can't miss it if you're scouring X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
I just tried to avoid this subject, but I mean, if I understand Clyde wanting to talk about it, because heck, what if your team's one of the ones that's talking about returning? You're excited. You're hopeful for this.
Well, that's a reason why I'm not taking another team, because what if my team comes back, right? So, I mean, like, I get it. I'm one of those guys.
No take backs.
Yeah, I can't be ditching your one colors and then turn around and be like, do I pull out my jersey and start wearing it? Yeah.
Oh, no. Clyde said, sorry. Clyde, you don't ever have to apologize, man. We'll talk about whatever you want on the show. You know, I see you comment. I see you adding stuff to the groups and stuff. So just know that we're a safe zone for conversation. As long as it's not toxic, you can talk about anything you want. No problem at all. Matt Rice said, is that the Michael Lathrop?
I'm sure there's others, but yes, Matt, that's the one that you know and you have met. Yes.
Solo layout, baby. It's him. All right. Let's see. That's it. That's all. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it on that. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. It's been a good show. Trying to cut it down a little bit. Every show we do pretty good, man. I know I've had you on here for like 2 hours before.
So. Yeah, my wife wasn't happy that night. But anyway.
I tell her I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. And appreciate your time too, man. Coming on, spending some time with me. Doing your thing in your own way. I appreciate that as well. I mean, you got your own style and flavor of doing your show and presentation, and just know I appreciate that, man. It's authentic.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. And, I try to do something in a way that I think other people haven't done, right? I think sometimes some things are a little bit more cookie cutter. I'm not saying everybody is, but sometimes you try to find a way, because there's different people. It's different, different strokes for different folks. And, maybe there's somebody that's a little bit more buttoned up, maybe straight to the point, that just wants their news and they don't want to get through, a little bit other. But I mean, there's other people that want more dialogue, more discussion. And so, I try to find that pathway that might work for some people. It doesn't mean that's who I am as an individual outside of here. I'll talk with anybody, as Matthew, you got my number and we'll talk. But I try to be very personal with people. But as far as a product, I try to give something slightly different than what may be out there by others.
Yeah. No, it's noticeable, and I appreciate that, man. Regardless, it's like your podcast is in rotation on Spotify for me, so I'll be listening to something and it just pops on. I'm like, all right, we'll give it a listen, and then I can always rest assured that, like, whatever we're doing, you're getting to the point and you're telling us the information in your show, and it's factual. So that is huge to me. There's not a lot of reaction type content, and that I appreciate the most.
Yeah, even for those that don't know, I tell you where it came from. I tell you exactly on what date, who posted or who reported, and that's just I get right to it and share it, and I don't dive into my takes on it too much. But thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
Exactly. And anytime, man. Like I said, you're always welcome, Michael. You come on back anytime you feel like, seriously.
Well, don't be surprised if I come texting or calling.
Anytime, my friend.
All
I'm
right.
serious. You just let me know. We'll get you on. I'll pop you in anytime. We got some stuff coming in terms of game coverage. We're going to really try to get some different people to break down games and come on and do segments. So we're going to try to do some different stuff on the show. Cool. And either way, man, we'll fit you in. We'll get you in anywhere I can. I promise.
Sounds good.
I have your information rolling at the bottom. It'll also be stuck to the notes if people at home don't know where to find you. Is there anything else you want to say or depart on?
No, I think that's it. Let's get through these 11 days and let's get back to some UFL football.
Hey, it's getting easier as it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, you got a couple letters. You stumbled over there for a while, but it's getting easier.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. I think it took me a good 3 shows to kind of filter out the XFL, but at this point, I'm on board as well. But thank you, Michael, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're sick, so thanks again, dude.
Thank you, and I look forward to doing this again sometime.
Yes, sir. We'll see you soon, my friend.
Right.
All right. Wrapping this show up. Appreciate you, Michael, man. Greatly appreciate you. Good conversations as always. Check out Player 54 Podcast if you haven't. It's been around for quite a while. He's rebranded before, so he did stuff before that as well. So check out his work, and always appreciative of what he does and how he does it. You can follow him. I'll include it in the notes, but I've had it rolling there at the bottom as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. If you listen for the whole show, much appreciated. If you've commented interacted, thank you even more. It makes the show even better and having some conversation. It's always a pleasure coming on and hanging out with you guys. Seriously. Do me a favor, like, share, and follow us on the socials. Our YouTube's kind of weak, so we're trying to pick it up. So if you can, like us. If you don't like us, no worries. You can still watch. So I do have 2 shows coming up next week. On the 24th, I have a couple LFA players that will be coming on the show. You got Jaden and Trojan, both pretty good players. You can watch some of their highlights right now on the LFA on YouTube, and their teammates down there at the Galos Negros. And like I said, that's for the LFA in Mexico. That's actually where they're at right now. I spoke with them kind of previous when we scheduled, and really cool guys. Look forward to hearing what they got to say and kind of telling us more about their experience so far. Check for that. It's going to be at a later time, 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. So just an hour later than what I normally go. On the 26th, we have another episode of the UFL Insiders. I'll drop the guest a day or 2 prior to the show. Really good guest. I'll tell you, he's a DC Defenders guy, so he should have a lot to say in terms of the running back room in DC. We should have rosters, so we should have more to talk about as well in terms of what's happening legitimately. So check that out. It's also going to be at the later time, 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Whew, that's a mouthful. Check it out. It should be a good one. Really trying to get in these shows before the week begins. I'm going to be going to a few games throughout the season, traveling. Nothing's close to me, so we'll have to put some miles on the old car and get back and forth. But it's kind of going to limit what I can do for my podcast. So I probably will dial back the AFN interview series a little, try to focus more on the UFL Insiders since we are in season. So check that out and give me some feedback if you guys watch and have anything you got to say. Just don't be toxic. Let me know. I love constructive criticism. Some of my favorites. I think that's all I got on my end. Oh, thanks to the UFL. Appreciate you letting me cover the league and talk about you and share the great information. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, UFL board, for being a partner and just working together and making everything more successful. Mark is a great guy. Appreciate you, Mark. Really look forward to the future and seeing what happens with everything. And that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. Hopefully next time I get on, I won't have the crud and voice will be there fully. But until then, we'll see. Like I said, the 24th, join me back here at 8:30 p.m. Central. and that's for the LFA fellas that we're going to discuss their playing time down with the Gallows. Thank you all again for watching. Greatly appreciated. Like, share, and follow. Let us know what you think. Thanks again to the team with AFN. We've got a lot of people that are contributing content. If you are on the team, I appreciate you greatly. As I kind of spoke with Michael just previous, we're going to try to implement some different things in some shows here soon. Try to get some different faces in here and get some breakdowns from people that are covering teams exclusively. You know, I don't want to be the one telling everything. I don't get any pleasure in being a source of information in terms of the all-knowing. I get the pleasure from sharing it. So I think we get some more opinions in here, some more personalities, some segments, some discussions. All is going to be great for the league as well as the fans at home, because I guarantee you some of these guys that are contributing content, and girls, y'all feel similar in some of your discussions, especially if you're a fan of the team they're covering. So look forward to that. We'll be working on that as much as possible. Check out alternativefootballnetwork.com. A lot of work's went into that. We haven't had as many articles written this month, so hopefully once the season starts, we'll have some more dishing out. But regardless, I appreciate those guys that are writing. You know, we're not doing this for money. We're not doing this for clout. We're doing it because we love it, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So thank you, everyone on the AFN team. Appreciate you greatly, whether you're a contributor, partner, or just a friend. Thank you. That's it for me, guys. Check me out Sunday. It should be a good show. AFN interview series. It's always a pleasure. Thanks again for watching. That's it for me. My name is Matthew Tyler, and I am out of here. Bye-bye.
Go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home.